A teacher claims there was not enough time to study the Civil War in her history class, so the kids got a whole bunch of critical race theory instead. Seriously, the Civil War replaced with a study of Colin Kaepernick. Really? Seriously. I'm Dr. Duke, she's Katie, and we're not making this up. Hello everyone, and welcome to the Dr. Duke Show, the only program that keeps you educated on the craziness impacting K-12 classrooms and college campuses around the world. Today's show is sponsored by Mike Lindell and our friends at MyPillow. Father's Day is coming up, and Dad deserves to sleep on the very best, which means he needs a MyPillow. No ifs, ands, or buts, a MyPillow. And sheets and towels. And now you can save up to 66% when you use the promo code Dr. Duke. That's DRDUKE. Use it and save up to 66% at MyPillow.com. Mike Lindell is a patriot. We need to support these kinds of businesses. He, in turn, supports a lot of businesses like ours. It's a match made in a really cool pillow. Today, we start with an 8th grade teacher in Oregon, Wisconsin public schools who decided there just wasn't simply enough time. There's no time to talk about the Civil War. All that white people stuff. Didn't have the time to do it. To do that, of course, was COVID's fault. See, because of COVID, we couldn't really talk about Antietam. We had to talk about Kaepernick. We couldn't do Gettysburg. We had to talk about Hannah Jones.
How did you not go from Antietam to Antifa?
Oh, see, That's why
I'm here. I just got my paycheck right there.
She's there, right?
My pillow paycheck.
We couldn't go to Antietam. We had to go to Antifa.
So Ann, 8th grade teacher in Oregon School District in good old Wisconsin. It's basically a burb of the Madison. And you can replace the teacher, you can replace the school district, but this is happening everywhere. And so this teacher, apparently, with COVID, and we're only in school half days, and we're ending school early because we didn't use all our snow days because you were at home during the pandemic. So we don't have any time.
So can I just repeat that? With all the COVID and missed schools, we're still going to use our snow days, even though there's no snow. We're still going to cut. This is what the commitment to your kids' education is.
True.
With all the COVID disruption, we still got a bunch of snow days we didn't use. So party!
Yeah, so Civil War, it's out. We just don't have time. But we do have to do that history assignment called Race Meets the Modern World. We have to make sure we get that. And so basically, we got a document showing all of the links to these stories that the students are going to read. Let's just take a look at a couple of them. The topics within are redlining, and it's, they were talking about Milwaukee, which is also in Wisconsin, we know. We have to obviously address the Black Lives Matter protests. We can't talk anything about like the marches or anything like in Gettysburg. But we need the marches that are at the Black Lives Matter.
Take a look at Black Lives Matter protests. Black Lives Matter, quote, may be the largest movement in U.S. history.
Of course, of
course it's not.
New York Times, that's a link to a New York Times story by the same name. So the students are being given New York Times quality material.
What you're just basically saying here is the movement to eradicate slavery was not as big as Black Lives Matter. That Black Lives Matter propagandistic riots in the streets, they were a bigger deal and a bigger movement than the 150-year march to eradicate slavery. The answer is no, that's not true. But see, what you got to do, the Civil War doesn't matter because actually slavery didn't end. We all know now, thanks to Black Lives Matter, that slavery is ongoing. Jim Crow has never been repealed for the last 250 years, including right this moment. It's as racist as it's ever been. And notice what a nuanced study of the Civil War would do. It would give you answers to these questions. It would give you closure.
Whoa.
Closure on slavery in America. But no, we can't ever close, can we?
Well,
and look at the fourth category.
Go on.
Colin Kaepernick and protesting athletes. They've got their own column here. Now, again, no Stonewall Jackson, no Robert E. Lee, no U.S. Grant, no Sherman's March to Atlanta. But we can talk about how Colin Kaepernick had a tryout for the NFL in Atlanta.
There is a tie-in, though, because he did live in Wisconsin for a time there.
Yes, yeah.
So they're in Wisconsin, so.
And he's in the national football, he's in the NFC, so he plays at teams like Atlanta. Kaepernick did go play as a 49er in Atlanta.
Yeah, you're making it seem like he is playing.
Because this is
He's
really
not
important.
playing.
There's no time to talk about any of that history stuff.
True.
And under kneeling athletes, sports protests, timeline of the prominent over the years, protesting in the national anthem. Episode 8, Uncomfortable Conversations. What is the NFL's national anthem protest policy? Here are the rules for kneeling in 2020. WNBA, we consider that sports? Come on. WNBA players escalate protest of anti-BLM team owner, right? So the WNBA, which can't sustain itself, if it weren't for handouts and charity from the NBA, they'd be gone. They're protesting their owner, okay? And Laura Ingraham told LeBron James to shut up and dribble. He went to the hoop. Ooh, he slam dunked on her. All this is more important than the Civil War.
But there is a connection to the Civil War.
Where you say?
They do have the reparations debate column.
Wait, reparations for us. We just erased the Civil War. What are we repairing for? Reparating for. There was no Civil War. There was no end to slavery.
That's a good point.
There was no abolitionism. None of it happened.
Well,
all this so Patrisse Cullors can buy 4 houses. All this so one of the founding members of Black Lives Matter can live in a big swanky white neighborhood where she just built a $35,000 fence to keep Whitey out, right? And I assume she's not just keeping Whitey out. I'm sure she's keeping Latini out, right? Latino-y out. Right? So all of that social justice, the communists, the Marxists who founded Black Lives Matter, they really care about equity. They really care about undoing our crass consumer culture, don't they? It's not enough to have one house, Patrisse, is it? She got 4 houses for Patrisse Cullors. And the father of one of the murdered black kids down in Missouri wants to know where the money is. All the black parents whose kids were being used to make people like Patrisse Cullors rich, they're not. You know what this sounds like? Too bad they didn't study carpetbagging. Back in the era of the Civil War. Too bad they couldn't squeeze in a little carpetbagging. They couldn't squeeze in a little bit of that. Because they'd have some context for what Black Lives, how it's exploiting these issues.
Scallywag.
Scallywag.
The scallywags and the carpetbaggers.
Muckrakers.
But we don't have time for that.
No.
Just know, Mom and Dad, no time for Antietam, but enough time for Antifa. So we're going to stay in the north, but we're going to head all the way over to the west coast to the state of Oregon instead of Oregon, Wisconsin.
Oregon, not Oregon, Wisconsin.
So much Oregon going on here. So the Oregon Department of Education decided, those disadvantaged children do not need money. But you, Nicole Hannah-Jones, you, the creator of the 1619 Project at the New York Times, you deserve that money that we could have given to the disadvantaged kids in the amount of $50,000.
50 large.
Yeah,
that was earmarked for disadvantaged children. And we know what that means in this day and age. It means particularly black kids, needy black kids who are still wearing the chains of oppression. They're wearing their torn corduroys. They have to go out every day before they go to the public schools, and they spend 4 hours between 4 a.m. and 8 a.m. picking cotton in Oregon, right? Because that's the world we live in. There was no Civil War. None of that ended. That money that was going to feed cotton-picking little African-American kids who had to bust their butts as slaves because of the eradication of the Civil War, that money now went to Hannah-Jones.
Yes.
It did not go to the needy little African-American kids.
Yeah, but she deserved it.
She deserves it because she made up
deserved
a
it.
history worldview that starts with 1619. Yeah.
No, that's she gets all the money else. This 50K specifically though is because she gave 2 speeches virtually.
Wait, they paid her
2 speeches
Wait, now
virtually.
Now I'm concerned. So she did 2 online speeches, 2 online, and she only got 50K?
I know. She is
How
owed
could-
some money.
Patrice got paid a lot
That's
more.
a good point.
You can't buy 4 houses with 50K, can you?
I
This
kind of
is-
doubt it.
Well, she's about to be given, they're trying to hire her at North Carolina and give her tenure?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So the group Oregonians,
Oregonians.
that's probably the best. Oregonians for Liberty so Oregonians for Liberty in Education, they issued a public records request. Yes. And they dug into it and they found that the Department of Ed had paid her a total of 50K, which was supposed to be, it was using resources from Everyday Matters, which is a program from the Department of Education that is focused on chronic absenteeism among disadvantaged children. And as we've been told, chronic absenteeism among disadvantaged children means any minority, particularly
How
black
many
students.
of those kids who couldn't attend were in the cotton fields of the
Oregon?
vast cotton fields of Oregon, picking cotton
Oregon. I do not know.
for the Confederacy, which never went away.
This is true.
And so, and all that money that could have gone to get those kids in school and away from the cotton gin, right? Eli Whitney. That's the only thing we remember from The Age, right? The evil white man, Eli Whitney. So the reason that all this money that was earmarked for absentee kids in Oregon, those poor black kids who were picking cotton all morning, now it went to Hannah Jones for her 2 online speeches.
Yes, but these speeches, I mean, the one was called 1619, centering black history and black futures in Oregon, except for those kids who are disadvantaged because you took their money. And then
Cotton-free tomorrow for all African American
there you go.
kids.
And then she spoke a week later, first to the students about the importance of black history, like the cotton picking, as well as how this history has helped to build our society today. And then she spoke to teachers about how the historical events detailed in the 1619 Project can and should inform how we create the conditions of belonging for black students, families, and educators in Oregon.
As long as you take money away from the kids who are not coming to class and give it to her and erase the Civil War.
That's all you got to do.
That's all you got to do.
That makes sense.
The erasure of all these white things, meaningless white things like the Civil War, and letting those kids stay out in the fields.
But it's okay because they were given the permission, not by these kids, because why would they actually care to talk to these kids about it? But it was according to the Oregon Department of Education Rules Coordinator, what a job title, Rules Coordinator, Jeremy Wartz. Wartz said that, yes, he actually said, got a human being to say, yes, we did give $25K per speech to Hannah Jones. But he also explained that staff members authorized the expenses. So the staff members did, but not the taxpayers, authorized the expenses in line with the goals of the program. And given the deep need for focal student groups, including black students and their families, to feel a sense of connection at this time and to support educators in creating the conditions for culturally responsive pedagogy and practice.
So blah, 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 carpetbagger, blah, 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 blah.
Scallywag.
Money taken away from kids, blah, 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 blah,
Scallywag.
blah. Scallywags.
You know, we're just going to stay in Oregon, the state, and we're going to go to Portland. That hellhole. Ami Horowitz. If you haven't seen anything by Ami Horowitz, you're missing out. The guy goes, he's like a man on the street. He's a documentarian. Basically, he makes documentaries. And he has a great sense of humor in the way he asks things that people are just too not with it to understand. So he decided he's going to go to the college. He went to Portland, Oregon, to ask students, hey, do you support Hamas? And not only do you support them, but hey, man, I'm fighting the good fight for Hamas. Can you give me some money for Hamas? Do you know what Hamas is?
And not only that, because these dumb kids don't know what Hamas is.
Exactly.
But you repeatedly use the words terrorist. We're not your father's terrorists. We are right. We're good terrorists.
That's because when he goes to ask these students for money, basically he strikes up conversation with him. He says, I'm with American Friends for Hamas. That it's all, and he made up an organization. It's American Friends for Hamas. Doesn't it sound like a great thing? And then he says again, we're not your father's terrorist organization, but he said they still need funds to go against Israel. Just listen to exactly what Ami says.
We're raising money for American Friends for Hamas. So I work for American Friends for Hamas. I work for American Friends for Hamas.
Okay.
We're not your father's terrorist organization. We've kind of evolved beyond that. We're still kind of what we do, but we've kind of rebuilt and rebranded ourselves. And Hamas is where it's at. We're raising money to do what we do as Hamas. We want to fund operations against Israel. And the type of attacks we're talking about are cafes and schools and soft targets. Type of operations we're talking about against soft targets, schools and cafes and that kind of thing. Make them feel it. Hospitals and destroy cafes, shopping malls and schools and places of worship. This is the kind of stuff we're talking about. Civilian populations. And this is the only way we can fight back, really. The suicide bomber is all we've got. I mean, that's kind of like, because it's the poor man's F-15. Right. And fund operations against Israel. That's the kind of thing we're doing.
Okay, well.
Hey,
great.
Thanks for your time, man.
Yeah, of course.
Appreciate it.
Good luck.
Thank you. This is all about peace and love. We got to fight back against the oppressors.
I agree.
See you, brother.
Did you? If you didn't listen closely, he was speaking plain truth to them, saying how bad Hamas is, but these kids aren't listening. They don't understand. He even at the very end said we have to fight back as the oppressors. He's saying what I'm doing is being an oppressor. And what we didn't show you is the segment of the whole thing where students were like, hey, I'll give $10. I'll give $15. Because he's like, hey, man, what could you spend? $10, $15, $27.
One student turned him away.
This is what, at least that we know of, that he showed.
Right.
But the best answer from one of these students is, let's say $27. And, that's kind of and she said, since that seems to be my Bernie donation, as in Bernie Sanders.
I love it when Ami says, we need the money to train more suicide bombers. Suicide bombers are the poor man's F-16s. That was great. And at the end, he says, we've rebranded. We're not your father's Hamas. We've rebranded. Same policies, but.
And one of the best things at the very end of the entire video, which, again, just type in Ami Horowitz on YouTube, you'll find him. He kept telling everyone, peace and love, like as they're done, like peace and love, and then peace and love. As you heard, we got to fight back as the oppressors. And these kids just are like, yeah, we totally got to do that. But he's not the only one to find these students. They're everywhere. They're professors. More than 70 Harvard faculty had decried what's going on with, U.S. and Israel's criminalization of the Palestinians' right to resist. And they called for the Biden administration to end the support for Israel's apartheid and all the other stuff.
Palestine, according to Harvard professors, have the right to resist.
More than 70 faculty.
And how do they resist? They start indiscriminately bombing Israel. And when they do, nothing. Yeah. Israel fighting.
It's their right to resist.
It's their right to resist. Israel needs to recognize that, hey, we've dominated them, so let them lob bombs at us. We're not going to do anything about it. This is Harvard for you. This is the kind of level of thought that you get at Harvard. I love what Ami said, too, over the course of his we didn't hear the kids, their stupid, simple-minded answers, but this is the problem. We've got Harvard, like faculties like those idiots at Harvard's, faculty like the idiots at Harvard who are turning these kids into that, right? Oh, yeah, we're going to, basically what Ami says, we're going to use this money to kill Israel, soft targets. Soft targets. We're not going for military installations. We're not going for the seat of government. We're going for cafes and pizza parlors and churches.
Where
and
all the average
that's
people
where we're going to kill.
Out. So, soft targets.
How much do you need? Here's $10. Here's $20. Here's $15. You go after those soft targets. Unbelievable the level of venality and ignorance. What happens when you get the ignorant and the politically smug? Ami just put that on display right there for you. time now for some real education. And boy, think about the response to those idiot college kids. I'm from Hamas. I want money from you to destroy innocent Israelis, not soft targets, not hard targets. How much can we write you? So education. What is the real purpose of education? We're looking at the Christian humanists of the 13th and 14th and 15th centuries today in the Dr. Duke Show all week, considering what the early Christian humanists were teaching and how they taught generations of kids. And no show on the Christian humanists would be from this period would be absolutely correct if we didn't include Leonardo da Vinci. Born in 1452, died in 1509. He was an Italian, as we know, painter, draftsman, engineer, scientist, theorist, sculptor, architect. While his fame initially rested on his achievements as a painter, also became known for his world-famous notebooks, all sorts of ideas and inventions in which he made drawings of and notes of a variety of subjects, including anatomy, astronomy, botany, cartography, painting, and paleontology. And he was also an education guy. He was also very concerned about education and how to make education, the new Christian humanism, a way of molding children in the way of Christ for wisdom and for love. Take a look at some of these quotes from Leonardo da Vinci. Quote, "Learning never exhausts the mind." You know what? When you're actually learning things, it does not exhaust you. Studying things that don't make any sense to you, that exhausts you. But learning things, getting it right, that doesn't exhaust any of us. How about this? Simplicity is the ultimate sophistication. Simplicity. KISS. Michael Scott said, keep it simple, stupid. Simplicity is the ultimate sophistication. Time stays long enough for anyone who'll use it. As long as you're using your time, what time has been given you, as long as you're using it effectively, it doesn't matter how little you have. You will have had enough. Look at the next quote, please. Quote, "I love those who can smile in trouble, who can gather strength from distress and grow brave by reflection. 'Tis the business of little minds to shrink, but they whose heart is firm and whose conscience approves their conduct will pursue their principles unto the death." Sounds awfully like an idea that emboldened America, the founding fathers. How about this quote from Da Vinci? "Poor is the pupil who does not surpass his master." The purpose of education is to make sure that those you educate actually go beyond your knowledge before it's all said and done. And finally, quote, "It had long since come to my attention that people of accomplishment rarely sit back and let things happen to them. They went out and happened to things. The noblest pleasure is the joy of understanding." Understanding is the purpose of education. Ironically, in American public schools today, the one thing your kids graduate is not understanding much of anything about anything. You couldn't get farther removed.
All right, just a quick reminder to please download our Freedom Project Media app. All you have to do is search Freedom Project in your app store. And of course, if you enjoy our content, please support us by joining the Patriot Club. Your one-time $99 tax-deductible donation allows us to bring you all the crazy stories every day. Simply visit patriotclub.us to get signed up. And of course, we will ship you, as a little thank you, our signature tumbler. Now we want to take some time, just one little moment, to show some love to our current Patriot Club members. And today, we're giving a shout out to Dean from Melbourne, Florida. Thank you, Dean, for supporting us.
And thank you, Dean, indeed. Let's promote him to Chancellor. What do we say? Dean's not good enough. And that wraps up this show for Freedom Project. I'm Dr. Duke. She's Katie. Until next time, find your educational sweet spot and work it.